The Grapes of Wrath is one of those great American classics by one of those great American authors that all of the English teachers enjoy harping on about. I happened to find a copy on an old bookshelf, so I decided to see what it was like for myself. Set in the American 1930s, farmers are hit with poor crop yields and are pushed off their land. They head towards the promised land of California like fresh-faced film majors, and we get to follow along one family's migration and struggles. Little do they know, when everyone and their dog is trying to head to California, there isn't enough success to go around for everybody. This is my second book by John Steinbeck. The first, thanks to a certain fucking writing class, was Travels with Charlie, which was okay. My copy came with an introduction by Robert Dumont. I didn't read it until after I finished the novel because they sometimes contain spoilers and always contain lusty praise for every other sentence. I have also lived in America for an extended amount of time, but I'm not familiar with this period of its history. I read mostly during commutes and in a few coffee shop sessions, or a little bit at night before sleeping. It took me around 2 weeks, given my inconsistent reading, perhaps around 8 to 10 hours. What a very curious book. It definitely feels like an American book. Most of the main plot points are memorable. I don't remember a few of the family members' names, but those are minor characters. It is one of those books where no one individual sentence delivers the main impact, but rather, every sentence makes its own small addition to the breadth of the whole book. A review on the back cover uses the phrase, transcendental gospel. I would slightly agree with that, but that phrase feels a little overblown to me. I would have used poetically summative instead, but that probably sounds just as many anal beads deep into the stuck-up camp. The poetic chapters where Steinbeck describes the entire Californian scene from a sort of God's eye view are really quite nice. Certain parts, like how the grandchildren of the first Californians had forgotten their ancestral hunger for land, shitloads of beautiful harvest rotting and destroyed because their prices are too low, unwilling thieves being shot and dying with a sigh rather than a struggle, and women relieved that the men still had the capacity for anger. This probably doesn't make much sense to someone who hasn't read the book, but I thought these summative chapters were really quite poignant. I sometimes found myself nodding in approval of how well written these parts are. There was one time, though, when a guy just yeets off with a, "I'm going away, tell Ma bye for me," and everyone just sort of shrugs the whole thing off. Maybe he was the red-headed stepchild of the family or something, but the fact that no one really gave a shit was kind of funny. I wasn't aware that 1930s kids were more expendable than, well, 1930s migrant workers. The abrupt ending made me think I had misread the ending at first. After some reflection, I can sort of understand its meaning as a kind of, and the journey goes on. But I really think there could have been an additional short poetic chapter as a better conclusion. I read the introduction and it talked about how some publishers wanted Steinbeck to fix the ending, but he refused, saying that his mind was set and, if I'm wrong, then I'm alone in my wrongness. First of all, fuck you for spoiling the ending in the introduction, and thank goodness I chose to read this shit after I had already finished the book. Second, I would still side with the publishers on this one, but I do respect his artistic license to questionable storytelling. On a side note, what is it with books and their fucking introductions? Movies don't start out the first 20 minutes with a documentary sucking off the director, except for a certain genre of film. I got an answer from someone far more literate than I. Due to the invention of the printing press around the 1500s, books didn't need to be hand-copied anymore. Writers could now spread their work to the general public instead of just their personal circle, like reducing social distancing guidelines during a pandemic. Writers were afraid their books and fragile egos would be criticized by the masses, so they put in introductions to bias the reader. And this tradition has stuck around like tar inside a certain writer's lungs. Anyways, a lot of older books are in the public domain, so publishers want to have a unique introduction in their specific edition for marketing purposes. Movies generally don't do this because they drink from a different plumbing source. That is, they intake their own kind of piss. Also, I don't remember hearing the title of the book while reading. Apparently, it is a reference to a poem about some battle hymn or whatever. Sure, but I don't care. It wasn't in the book. Here's one of my main beliefs. Books should not expect the reader to do anything other than read, including looking up other sources. If this poem is so important, then it should have been included in the prologue or something. A lot of books do that already, so I don't know why Steinbeck thinks he's above that. This is not a big deal, as it's just a title, but the philosophy behind adding a title that requires more context for understanding is stupid. It's a novel, not a research paper. But does it hold up as the great American classic? The novel definitely provides a very fat, engaging slice of life during the Dust Bowl migration and feels like an accurate living depiction with warm, fleshy characters. It isn't bad at all. It's good, perhaps even great. I haven't read many particularly spicy American books before, so I suppose this qualifies as a solid one. Hmm. I would not categorize this as a must read, but it definitely hangs high on the list if you're looking for a good story about America's past, migration, and the human condition. In general, I'd recommend this book purely on its poetic sections. For those looking to understand America and its story, then this book should be all the more compelling. Not bad, it holds up. Good job, Steinbeck. Fix the ending next time.